Happy Tuesday, English 220. I hope that your week has gotten off to a good start and that you were able to enjoy some of the warm weather that happened. And I feel like we're sort of going to be going back to winter weather. So it was a nice reprieve for a moment. So I wanted to check in with you about last week's assignment and just sort of set up what we're talking about this week. I've seen a few of you really working hard to sort of navigate that first research exercise. And I think people are doing a nice job walking through the different places I send you and trying to figure out what information you're getting on your topic. And the only other thing I'd say always about research exercises is the more of that annotation you can give me, the better. So if you're listing a source that you found, I'd love to know just a little bit about that source. Like title, author is important, but also what did that source tell you, and are you planning on using the source in your paper? That's what a good annotation does. And it doesn't have to be very long, but after each source, maybe 3 sentences or so that tells me what it is and if you plan to use it and if you got good information from it. So just remember that as you work your way through that research exercise and give me links to different things. I don't just want a big series of links in your research exercise. I'd like to know a little bit about them. So, but what I'm seeing is that people are working hard to sort of navigate their way through the different databases that I send you to. And that's kind of the big point of the first research exercise, is to refamiliarize yourself with the library resources and to try to gain some perspective on your topic. So this week we're going to focus a little bit more on what type of information we're looking for in terms of the pieces of rhetoric. So as we've said this before, and I hope the student samples help you with this, essay 1 is in 2 parts, and you can decide how, but it's in 2 parts. One part is the context or background for the social or political change, just sort of refresh your audience's memory about whatever that is. So if you chose dropping the atomic bomb, if you chose the civil rights movement, if you chose what else is out there, moments around the Holocaust, we want to remember what the context was for this social and political change. So that's informational. The part where there's a little bit more analysis is that you're also going to then talk about the pieces of rhetoric that influence that change. So I use this as an example all the time, but if you're using 3 major speeches from Malcolm X as the rhetoric that helped influence the civil rights movement, we want to know more about those 3 pieces of rhetoric from Malcolm X. We want to know when they were delivered, who they were delivered to, what impact they had. So the exercise this week asks you to do that with your pieces of rhetoric. So it says, tell me what pieces of rhetoric you're going to use in your paper, and can you give me some excerpts? We actually want to hear the rhetoric. That's an important part too. There's no pathos or emotion in this paper unless we're actually hearing words from Malcolm X's speech, right? So if you notice the student samples, they have actual excerpts and words and sentences from the speech. I think that's important. So pull out some things from the speeches or films or whatever you're doing for rhetoric. If you're doing a picture or a painting, describe it to us. So spend some time making sure the reader knows what it looks like, right? And you can, of course, always do an appendix where you show us the piece of rhetoric, but in the body of your paper, we want it to come to life for us. So a picture or image, describe it to us. If it's a speech, an essay, a song, give us some of the excerpts from it. And then the second piece of that rhetorical analysis is just sort of, can you give us a sense of what impact this had, and how are you going to talk about this in your paper, right? So sometimes you might have to go back out and literally research Malcolm X's speech given at such and such place and find some information about it. What impact did it have? Where was it given? What did he say? Like, what did the room look like as he was delivering it? So those are important pieces to the rhetorical analysis we'll do for this paper. And I think the exercise this week is going to put you in a really good position to do that. So figure out what your pieces of rhetoric are, pull some excerpts from it or some descriptions, and then give us some sense of the impact it had. That's what the rhetorical analysis exercise asks you to do this week. And that's really all I'm asking you to do. I'm trying to give you a little bit of breathing room. And the only other thing I put up this week are the student samples. I think they're going to be very helpful to you when students are trying to model this paper or conceive of it. There's 3 different examples who approach it in different ways that I think will be helpful to you. So those 3 are available to you now, and I ask you read all 3 of them just so you can see 3 different approaches to this essay. They're also, I hope, good samples of what MLA and APA look like. Next week, as we draft the paper, I'm going to do a nice refresher course on MLA and APA so that you know how to do your in-text citations, especially when it comes to pieces of rhetoric. So look at those student samples because they also do a pretty nice job of knowing how to do an in-text citation, which is how you cite anything in the body of your essay. And then their works cited sheets look pretty good too. And I think what we're asking for in this essay, I think I've said 5 sources or so, and they are sources that should speak to the background information about the social and political change and sources that speak to the piece of rhetoric. So that's kind of what we're looking for now. So take a look at student samples, look at the rhetorical analysis. It's supposed to be that next step to, okay, I know what my social and political change is, I know what my pieces of rhetoric are, how am I going to talk about them in a paper? Because next week we will draft that first essay. Finally, we will draft it, and we'll try to put all those pieces together. So next week, I'm going to do a nice refresher in this video about MLA and APA. I have a worksheet that I'm going to have you do with that. But this week, I'd like you to have finished your research for Essay 1 and to do the rhetorical analysis. And I think you're going to be in a really good place to draft your essay next week. I've started kind of giving comments and grades as well. So